if it is nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, where does it come from? The voice, in its most elementary manifestation, appears as something that can convey the uniqueness. It expresses interiority, which it brings out. It testifies to an unfathomable interior. It exposes the hidden treasure of individuality. But, to put it bluntly, this is another look. It's a powerful notion of one's presence in one's voice, a presence in a way more real than any usual sense of presence, a presence beyond presence, although the voice is but mere undulation of the air, fleeting, passing the moment it's emitted, and therefore evoking presence in its most elusive. And perhaps the very notion of presence cannot be conceived without a voice. And this was Derrida's idea. The idea he expounded on this notion of phonocentrism. We need a voice to think presence. We need a voice not only to think, but to experience one's presence to oneself, the self-presence, consciousness, which is based on auto-affection, where one is both the emitter and the receiver of one's voice, in the illusion of pure self-affection. And this is what perhaps we call consciousness. So there is this very strong metaphoricity connecting the voice with the spirit, the breath, something more real than any positive presence, the real presence. But this makes the very notion of presence dependent on something eerie, spectral, and virtual. For where does the voice come from? Already the simple question of its emission involves a paradox. We can see the mouth, the bodily opening from which it's supposed to emanate, yet the voice comes from an invisible interior. It indicates an interiority we can never see its source. It divides the body into an inside and an outside, and is actually the major operator of this division, the most dramatic division there is. It's like standing on this dividing line, which it helps to produce. It is at the same time the intersection of the body and language. It is what they have in common, and pins the language to the point of bodily emission. It ties language to the body. So, the signifier is a creature without a body, a creature of logic. But with the voice, it acquires an embodiment, an incarnation. For it can function only if someone assumes it with his or her own voice. But this connection is paradoxical, for the voice doesn't simply belong to either the body or the language. It cannot be seized by linguistics. It inhabits language without being its part. And it is also not a positive part of the body. It is a missile which departs from it. It is not simply inside nor outside, but consists in the very transition. So it is the great operator of this division, the borderline paradox, which requires a sort of new kind of ontology, or new kind of topology. So let me give another literary example. I started with Shakespeare, the dawn of modernity. So let me take an example from the opposite end, from one of the high points of modernism, from Samuel Beckett's The Unnameable. The scene from Romeo and Juliet forcefully staged the opposition between the voice and the name, assuming drama of the two. While Beckett's text brings this to an extreme, what is at stake here is precisely a voice without a name, the unnameable, nameless voice. For we literally don't know, throughout the novel, who is emitting this voice, who is speaking, where does it come from. So the voice without a known origin or location is the whole point of the novel. The novel is driven just by this voice, to which no name can be assigned. And let me just remind that the unnameable is the third part of the trilogy, which comprises Molloy and Manon dies as the first two parts. And, well, to cut it short, there is a sort of disappearance act. From each part to the next, more things disappear. So finally, there is no more story, no more characters, no more heroes, no more plots. What remains in the end is just this mere voice. And I will take just one quote, which I love, which is really very precise. I have said it. Without a mouth, I have said it. I have said it inside me, then in the same breath, outside me. Perhaps that's what I feel, an outside and an inside, and me in the middle. Perhaps that's what I am, the thing that divides the world in two. On the one side, the outside, on the other, the inside. That can be as thin as foil. I'm neither one side nor the other. I'm in the middle. I'm the partition. I have two surfaces and no thickness. Perhaps that's what I feel. Myself vibrating. I'm the tympani. On the one hand, the mind. On the other, the word. I don't belong to either. So this is the end of the quote. You see what I mean? One couldn't be more precise. The voice is the very principle of division. Itself not on either side, and yet on both, at the intersection of the inner and the outer, but unplaceable in that division. The thinnest of foils, which connects and separates the two. And sometimes, the more religious squeezed in the name, the stream of consciousness, and sort of putting down the rendering of the inner voice. I think that with Beckett this is a misnomer, because what is at stake is precisely the line which separates consciousness from its outside, and which is constantly renegotiated. It's not simply that we have consciousness, the line is blurred and indistinct. We can mark in passing the distance that separates the two quotes. On the one hand, the exemplary drama of the voice and the name of the Father. At the other end, the nameless voice, the voice without a foothold, with no name of the Father to stick to or to oppose, and with no individuality to express, with no social obligations to fulfill or to fall back on, merely the persistence of the voice, but which obliges, by strange ethics of perseverance. And the last sentence of the novel, I must go on. It is as if the name of the Father, has lost its power and authority to name, to define a social, to prescribe, to allot a social place, as if it has become missing. And this voice is a new voice, an invention of modernity, something modernity has brought forward. And Beckett's The Unnameable can be read as a sort of exemplary counterpart to this first example of Romeo and Juliet. So the voice literally embodies the dividing line, and is something that can never, this voice is something that can never, one can never claim as one's own. One can ultimately never speak in one's own voice. It may seem to be the most intimately mine, my own innermost possession, but it is also something which disrupts our self-presence, the very notion of the self, and refers you to virtuality. Stemming from the interior, it brings out more and other things that one catered for. And Beckett is here an excellent point in the case. We have now many schools of creative writing, which endeavor to teach people how to find their own authors' voices. This is the guiding metaphor. Find your own voice. What is specifically and originally yours, what is properly to you. And Beckett's problem, I think, is exactly the opposite. How to lose one's own voice. How to write neutrally, anonymously. How to get rid of style. How not to be an author. And hence, he wrote also, as you know, in a foreign language, deprive oneself of his mother tongue. And Michel Foucault, in the famous lecture, What is an Author, actually started with a quote from Beckett, Qu'importe qui parle, what matter who's speaking. So the point is how not to fall into the trap of one's own voice as this ineffable inner treasure, and into the twin trap of authorship. For him, the voice is precisely not something intimate or proper, but something that disturbs the interiority of consciousness. It is more appropriate to say that the voice is like an intruder, a foreign body, a prosthesis, a bodily extension, an artificial limb. It is never authentic. It is never just an expression. The voice is like a spectral autonomy. It never quite belongs to the body we see. The voice never sounds like the person emitting it. There's always a gap a sort of mismatch between the body and the voice. It always seems that there is a sort of ventriloquism at work, as if ventriloquism was the standard use of the voice that we overlook by mere habit.